Yeah. 20, 20. What is it? 20, 0, 2, 0.
Alright, cool. Gonna make another video. The title of this one is gonna be Bittersweet is God's favorite flavor. And yeah, so I've already explained, like in some of my past videos, why pain is inevitable. And how, like, in a sense, there's no reality that God could have created, or it doesn't even need to be God. There's no reality that could have been created, or that could have even arisen, even just out of chaos and chance. If you think that like something like this could have arisen through chance, it didn't. But even if you believe that, even still, it's impossible for some kind of reality to arise or be created that doesn't have pain, suffering, negativity, badness, wrongness. Like there's no reality that can be created that doesn't have that shadow side. But yeah, as I said, the title is that Bittersweet is God's favorite flavor, and I'm sure you understand what I mean by bittersweet. But just kind of as an example, I don't know if you've like ever had like a loved one, a family member, or someone you was in a relationship with, or a good friend, someone who, like, let's say they died, they passed away. Of course, that can create a lot of pain and suffering. Of course, I don't even need to like say that. But at the same time, if you've never like had someone you loved who lost or something like that, then maybe you might not be able to relate. However, if you have, I'm sure you've also experienced this feeling, this bittersweet feeling. It's like this melancholy where you're feeling extreme sadness, but at the same time, you're feeling extreme happiness. And it's like you're sad that they're gone, but you're happy and grateful that you got to experience them, that they were even alive in the first place, and that you got to like love that person and spend time with them, enjoy time with them, and so on and so forth. And you can kind of reminisce. Like, reminiscing, that's another good one. A lot of people enjoy reminiscing. I also enjoy. I don't really think about the future or past anymore. Like, obviously, to some degree, you have to like plan a little bit, but I don't really like think and like always thinking about the good times back then, or thinking about how good it's going to be tomorrow. However, there are some times every now and then where I will reminisce, and reminiscing is actually like very enjoyable as well. And you know that kind of feeling where, like, especially if you did have some, everyone's had some good times in the past, and then like, you know, when you're kind of thinking back, you're reminiscing, and then you're happy, you think about all them good times, all of that. But then you're sad at the same time that those times are gone. And like, it's just that melancholy, that bittersweet feeling. You know, that bittersweet feeling where it hurts, but it feels good at the same time. This is kind of the feeling that I'm kind of talking about when I say bittersweet. And of course, yeah, it doesn't even have to only be reminiscing or when you've lost a loved one, but anything, like even like some, like if you've got into watched a good TV show, like something, especially that had more seasons, like 5 or 6 or 7 or even 8 seasons. Imagine like your favorite TV show and it had 8 seasons and you invested how many months into that and you was watching hour after hour, episode after episode. You was loving it. You was falling in love with the characters. But then some of those characters died along the way, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then you know when you get to the end of the show, and then it's done. You've seen it. You've watched it all. It's finished. The end. And you just get that feeling. Of course, like you could like some people might even get depressed and think, because you do get that a bit of an emptiness feeling. Obviously, it's just a TV show or something, but like if it was something really that you really enjoyed, like, and you was watching for a long time, you actually invested hours into that. Like if you added up all the hours of that whole series, it was probably multiple days in a row. Like if you get like a series with 10 or 12 episodes in a season, each episode is an hour, and there's like 5 or 6 or 7, 8 seasons. You know, like that's like 4 days of straight watching in a row, basically, if you like put it all together. So that's a lot of investment. Like when that's gone, so you can get that like empty feeling, and that's all part of it as well. But then, you know, that feeling of like when you're thinking back on how good it was, and like, see, because this is almost like an analogy for life. Like life is kind of like I would say like kind of like a metaphor of like it's almost like it's like imagine you have this beautiful woman, and then she gives you a kiss, and then like imagine she kissing you, and like she coming to you, kisses, and then the moment you kind of push back, then it kind of goes away, leaves you wanting more, leaves you desiring more. You know what I'm saying? That kind of push and pull, kind of like to where it kind of gives you something, and then it kind of goes away. But then now you've experienced the sweetness, and then you want it again, but then it's gone now, you see. And you could say that's bad, but then see the opposite of that would be like you get the stimulus, or you get the enjoyment, or the whatever, but then it just keeps on coming and stuffing you. That's kind of what you think you want. But then how many times have you had so much stimulus? Like let's say you really enjoy cake, but then imagine you had like you only ever ate cake, and then you're just eating like that. Someone you said, cake's your favorite, and then someone gave you 100 or 1,000 cakes. They said for your birthday, so that's your favorite, right? Just eat all of them. Like you said, you like cake, so cake is good, right? And like 2 cakes is better than 1 cake, right? So like 1,000 cakes should be better. It should be the best. But actually, no. There's an inflection point to where it becomes too much. So what reality kind of is it's kind of gives you this sweet kiss, right? And then it kind of pulls away, like leaving you desiring more, like leaving you in that bittersweet taste, that bittersweet kind of like state. And as I've explained in my past video, how the link between life and desire, like life and desire are completely linked. In fact, you wouldn't be alive if you didn't desire to be alive. You can lie to yourself and say, I want to be dead. But if you really, really wanted to be dead, you would be dead right now. Don't lie to yourself. If you really wanted to be dead, you would be dead right now. So life is linked to desire. Like literally, as I explained in that video, like the whole dream and of the relative plane of life, it's always got a direction. There's always a goal. There's always something you're chasing. That thing may be something different. You could have like macro goals, like a 10-year goal. And then you could also have a goal that like is like a 5 or 10 minute goal. Like what you just want right now. Right now, I just want food or something, you know what I'm saying? But then like over 10 years, I want like that career or that achievement or that thing or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So you can have like different levels of desire, but you're always going in the direction. Desire is always a thing. So, but then, like, if it's just complete, like, if you just wanted one thing, you just had to get £100 and then you got it, then the game will be done and then it'll be finished. No more entertainment, no more, like, enjoyment, no more anything. And as I've explained in my part, like, the truth is absolute. So then the truth, you think, oh, yeah, then the game will be done, then everything will be gone. But the truth would still be true, the absolute would still be absolute, and then there wouldn't be anything. There wouldn't be any entertainment in a sense. So it has to it can never basically give you everything. It can never give you everything at once, and it can never or you could even obviously through spiritual practice, certain practices, you can experience everything through once, but you can never be sustained. And it always kind of pull back, leaving you in that bittersweet, melancholy feeling. But that's actually God's favorite feeling. And I explained not a lot of people watch that Can You Handle the Void video that I made, but I was explaining there as well, like the kind of what like the actual bliss is. Like when people are speaking, like spiritual teachers and explaining about bliss and so on, a lot of people kind of misinterpret that, in my opinion, and they think that bliss is basically pure happiness always, kind of, and feeling like they kind of think bliss is ecstasy. Like I kind of experience both, and they're linked, but ecstasy is kind of like what people think bliss is like. They think bliss is like ecstasy, where it's like pure, like a excited kind of happy, like yeah, like you just won the lottery all the time, like yeah, like that. But it's not like you can experience that as well, but that's not really what the spiritual teachers are speaking about when they say the ultimate bliss and that bliss is your nature. They're actually speaking about, and what I said in that Handle the Void video is that the true bliss, the ultimate bliss, is actually the merging of pleasure and pain. It's when you transcend both, and it's when pain and pleasure merges together. And that might, if you're coming from like an ego structure, like where obviously everything is opposites and it's either this or it's that. And you know what I'm saying? And pain is bad and pleasure is good. And you know what I'm saying? So merging pain and pleasure, that would be worse than just pleasure, right? But actually it's 1,000 times better. Like it's richer. That's what you don't understand. It's like it has this richness to it. And that was one of my points as well that I was going to speak about, is that actually richness, to be rich is to have infinite, or maybe not infinite, but extremely large amount of variety. That's really what richness is. Obviously, we can speak about rich in like money and so on, but really the whole reason why we say those people are rich in money, when they have a lot of money, they can afford to go on that holiday, buy that house, so they can afford a lot of variety. The poor man doesn't have money and so on. So really it's not the money. The money is just a tool, but really it's the poor man. He has to always work that same job, drive that same car, go to the same house, in that same country with the same wife. So it's literally just like you're in that loop, that hellish loop of monotony. You know what I'm saying? It's just the loop of the same thing. Like even if you had that, like lived that experience for one day, you would enjoy it. It'll be lots of variety because you would have never been in that house. So that house would have been new to you. That job would have been new to you. That woman, your wife, would have been new to you. Like everything would have been new to you. You would have enjoyed it. But then if you've done it the same time, like in a loop, then like it starts to become torture. And I was actually even watching one video from a YouTuber called Benedictine the Truth. And he was actually speaking, there was a video where he was speaking about if you would like rate your life from 1 to 10 and so on. And how like if you would want to like relive your life. And a lot of people were saying they wouldn't want to relive their life. And I myself would, even though I actually really did enjoy my life. But even myself, I wouldn't want to relive it. But then I actually wrote a comment as well, where I was saying how I think it would really make a difference whether the person, like in this, obviously this is just a social experiment, just like an imaginary experiment really, but like if we take everything to kind of like from that analogy, I really think it would make a difference depending on if the person keeps their memory of that life that they've lived. So like if they were going back and had to relive their life again, but they still remembered that they've already lived this life, then I think that would be extremely torturous to go through it again, what you've already been through, and go all the way back and lose all your progress. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to get back to where you was. That's like kind of like going in debt. That's like going in debt and then working years and years just to get back to zero, if you get what I'm saying. However, in my opinion, if you was to like press the button and relive your life again, exactly the same, but you didn't even have the memory of it, it would literally be exactly the same as like the first time. And there wouldn't even be a difference between like having lived it the second time as opposed to the first time. If it was exactly the same how things played out and you had no memory of it, it will be exactly the same. Even if you've lived this life, like some people have that philosophy that, oh, we've lived this life 1,000,000 times, which I think that's ridiculous. But even if you did, if you didn't had no memory of it, even if you've lived this life 1,000,000 times, it wouldn't make any difference if you had no memory of it, because it would literally just be like it's your first time. But yeah, that whole tangent was about the monotony of like repetition and like why it's really like painful for the poor guy who has to live that same loop and loop, because there's nothing new, it's completely predictable, and he still has the memory and knowledge of like the past 10 or 20 years that he's been doing this, and now he's still doing the same thing, and he knows this, and he still has to, you know what I'm saying? That's where the real pain comes in. So the richness is the variety, and the variety gives pleasure and enjoyment because of the surprise of it. You enjoy this new thing, you get surprised. Sometimes you get surprised in a bad way, sometimes in a good way. That's the best feeling, a good surprise. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, bliss is actually higher, way higher than just pleasure, because it's like got the variety of both the pain and the pleasure, and it's merged. And it's not painful like when you really experience these peak bliss states. It's like it floors you. It's like such richness, like it cuts deep. When you are like, it's like when you experience those bliss states, it's like tears of joy. That's literally what it's like. Like if you've never been in a state where you've experienced like multiple times like tears of joy, of bliss, of ecstasy, like that's sad. And I hope that each of you guys can experience that at some point, because it is like, and a lot of like, for example, that guy Benedictine's like a lot of his videos, I really enjoy a lot of them. And a lot of it is very true. But yeah, there's one thing, for example, he was saying in some of the videos where, for example, like there's more pain than there is pleasure, and that like the pleasure and the good things don't really compensate for the bad things. And for example, he used like an example in one of his videos where like he was saying like if you could experience like 3 days of the ultimate pleasure, like just the peak pleasure that you could ever experience, but then before that, like your cost is that the day before that, first you have to go through one whole day, 24 hours of experiencing the worst possible pain ever for 24 hours non-stop. So 1 day of pure pain, and then you get 3 days of pleasure, like the highest pleasure. But then would you do that? And even I was thinking, I don't even know if I'll do that. And like when you put it like that, yeah, it does seem like the pain is more severe than the pleasure and so on. And it does seem like that, and to some degree it's like that, but I feel like that's only when you're kind of comparing it on the physical level. Like I feel like on physical level, there's like worse excruciating pains that you can experience on the physical level than like pleasures. Like I wouldn't say that like an orgasm, even if you're like having sex with the most beautiful woman in the world, you have like the like 10 orgasms in a row like with her, like that's still not really gonna like be anything. Like that's not gonna be like, if you kind of think of it as a scale on 0, like, and like let's say that's like 1,000 like units of enjoyment. That's still not like, that still might not be as good as like how bad it would be to be boiled alive, or like like to be skinned alive, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like that seems like that would be 10,000 like of a kind of like pain and like suffering in comparison to that 1,000. So yes, on the relative plane in this life, like if you're just speaking about as a human, yes, it seems like there's more kind of possible pain than pleasure, but there are certain states of consciousness, that in peak states of consciousness, where you transcend your like physicality and all of that, where like I myself, like I wouldn't be speaking about this if it was just like a theory. Like I myself have experienced this, where in them peak states of bliss or of pleasure or of enjoyment, like it's so good, like it's so good that in that moment, like if you was to ask that person, like, would you go for a day of like extreme torture and all that to like experience this? They would absolutely say yes. They would. And I think that everyone that says not like that, they wouldn't take that 1 day of 24 hours of pain for the 3 days of like the highest peak, is they would only say that because they actually haven't experienced that peak of life. They actually haven't experienced it. Otherwise, they wouldn't say that. And obviously, it seems like, that might be too good to be true, or maybe you're just like doing just positive thinking. Like that's not nothing to do with positive thinking or something like that. Those states, like they exist, they can't be sustained, but those states, those peak states, are equally as peaked as like how low the lowest valley is. There's not like the valleys don't go lower than the peaks, like because it's literally just from 0 anyway. So it's a sine wave. So it's just like, they're always equally balanced, if you get what I'm saying. That's in the eternal scope. So in a relative like scope, you might say, that like one day the peak was only that small and the valley was like that. But then there'll be another point in time where the valley was only that small and the peak was like that. So you have to think it's on a really long scale, then it's balanced. But if you just take only 1 day or 1 year, then yes, it can seem imbalanced. So yeah, and even contradiction is kind of a big part of this as well, because if you're kind of a logical thinking person, you kind of think that contradiction necessarily means that it's wrong, necessarily means that it's invalid, and when actually when you're speaking about absolute truth and all these things, like that's actually wrong. Yes, in the relative plane is kind of still true. Like if someone's saying like, if someone is like 6'1", like me, and then I say I never lie, like I never lie, I'm 6'4", but I'm 6'1". See, that is a contradictory statement. And yes, there I would agree with you that it's invalid. Like you're saying that you never lie, and in the same sentence you lied. Yeah, that's contradictory, and that in that sense is invalid. But that's only like in the relative plane and so on, where like, but in the absolute, like the absolute, do you think the absolute has to make logical sense? Do you think the absolute has to adhere to like logical and illogical, or like right and wrong? See, that's what I'm saying. People think, like the absolute or the truth, it has to all be right, or it has to all make sense. No, it does not have to make sense. That's a foolish assumption. The the absolute is transcends right, transcends wrong, transcends logical or illogical, or like congruent or contradictory. Like it's both, of course. It's both congruent and contradictory. It's both right and wrong. How can you deny that? Like, how can you look at reality and say everything's wrong or everything's right? You're just lying. You're just lying. Like, there are things that are right, there are things that are wrong, there are things that are congruent, things that are contradictory, things that are logical, things that are illogical, yet they're all true. As I've already explained, there's no such thing as falsehood, because falsehood is false and only truth is true. And obviously the bittersweet feeling, like that's where it kind of it's a little bit linked with that contradiction, because it's like, yeah, that feeling itself is a contradictory feeling. That bliss feeling is a contradictory feeling because it feels so good. Basically, like my term, as I said, when it merges the pleasure and pain and it goes to that peak of bliss, like it basically feels so good. This is going to sound like it doesn't make sense, but as I said, the absolute, when it comes to the highest levels, it goes beyond like sense making. In them levels, it's so good that it hurts. Like it feels so pleasurable that the pleasure goes so like to the peak to where like to where it hits the inflection point and starts to feel painful. That's even how like really pain like kind of got created, because like pain is like is like too much pleasure. See, that's basically kind of how it happened. Like God is basically having like is basically always having an infinite orgasm. It's always in that state of infinite bliss. And we are actually God, obviously, you have to watch my past videos, where God incarnated as subsections, looking like from this angle or from that angle. But then the moment you like incarnate into a limited particular form, then you're excluding the rest of yourself. And then you experience that as other, or as the world, or as existence. And see, like God is the 0 point, and as it's experiencing this, like this infinite orgasm, like think about it. When you orgasm, you ejaculate. Like it's like it's like a pulse out. If you get what I'm saying. So you can think from the 0 point, like it's pulsing out like a big bang, and actually all it's pulsing out is just infinite bliss. It's just all just bliss. But then which is the merging of pleasure and pain, as I explained. But then as we incarnate as limited forms, and then we're programmed to only want the pleasure and not the pain, then see, we're kind of at the pain we're experiencing is God's bliss. And that sounds psychopathic, and that sounds crazy, but see, you're not separate from God. It's not like God's there up in the clouds having the pleasure and you're down here like experiencing nothing, because you're God experiencing through this. So if you self-realize, if you awaken and realize that you are God, then you will be in the bliss, and then you'll be in that higher state, and then you'll realize, oh, all these petty like human wars, like do you really think like, poverty, like that should negate, like because there's poverty, like that should negate like this bliss? See, you might think yes. And then that's how I know if you say that you've never experienced it. Because in the face of that, like everything else is petty. It's petty. Like, why do you think like there's some of these Indian yogis and all of that? Like they'll just sit on the street and they don't care if they're homeless. They don't care if they ever have sex in their life. They don't care, like some of these monks as well. Obviously, I'm not even saying all of these monks are enlightened, really, and like most of them aren't. But like the true ones, like they're not even like abstaining from sex or abstaining from this or that or not chasing these things because like they're like restraining. It's like no, they see that that's baby food. Like, do you have to prevent yourself like from going back and playing with your childhood toy, like your like you had like a teddy bear when you was 3 years old? Do you have to like hold yourself back from like going back to that and playing with that? Do you have to hold yourself back from playing with a car toy? Like, no, that's baby food to you. See, that's what I'm saying. When you've experienced these things in comparison, like a little peak, like a sex orgasm, or I don't know, like whatever, like little human like enjoyment you might get, it's just a baby food. It's like little, so like even the human pleasures are baby food, but even the human like suffering is just baby food. It's just nothing as well, like insignificant. Like it's like a minor cost, a minor expense. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a mild inconvenience. And see, when you're still like limited in your ego, and then see, if you are limited in your ego, you're gonna think, no, I'm not limited in my ego, but that you probably are, like, because it's not easy to escape the ego. Like, of course, the ego still goes on, but even after awakening and realization, but it's not that like dismantling your whole psyche and your whole ego is not an easy thing. So it's not like you should be ashamed to still be like operating from your ego, but that's what I'm saying. Your ego it's just, it can't understand like really what I'm saying. Like you can kind of understand intellectually, like think you understand, but that's what I'm saying, because all you know, like, why is everyone chasing sex? Why is everyone chasing money and like holidays and these like things, like a mansion and stuff? Because that's really the highest thing they know. They think that that's like the best that life has to offer. They really don't even know that there's something like above that. And if that's the highest like you can get, then yeah, like it is quite shit. But then when you like know that such a thing is possible, those peak spiritual states of bliss, like those things do make it worth it. Yeah. And yeah, so like, because really think about, what do you want in life? Like life, what we want is satisfaction. Like satisfaction, fulfillment, and in a sense that's gratification. Like obviously if people say, oh, you want sexual gratification, or you want like social gratification, or whatever kind of but really you want gratification, satisfaction. And how do you get satisfaction, fulfillment, gratification? How you get enjoyment, gratification is by doing something, expending energy, overcoming an obstacle, and receiving a reward for it. That's basically how you I'll draw a graph again. This is basically exactly the same graph that I drew for the money, energy and zero-sum game, with the effort and reward and so on. But yeah, it's very easy to kind of like thing on. So it's basically this thing, yeah. So like that's the reward and that's the effort. So like, and I remember I explained everything is the zero-sum game. So it can expand, but when it expands, there's usually two dimensions and they have to always be equilibrium, right? And so how you actually get gratification, like think about some of the most happiest moments you've been in your life, where you really like, think about it, like when you was at some of the happiest moments, like how did that like arise? Usually it's when you did something extremely hard, extremely difficult, extremely challenging, you overcame it, and then received an extremely high reward for it. See, so you can get gratification by doing something very easy, like a low effort, and you will get a reward. But the reward is going to be very small. If you put low effort, the reward is going to be very small. And then the larger effort, then the larger the reward. of course, I explained in my money, energy, zero sum game. So, of course, it's not necessarily in life always that you expend lots of effort and then you're always necessarily going to get the highest reward. For if you're looking at individual cases, yes, you can find anomalies where that's false. But I'm speaking about as a collective, like in general. So anomalies don't really like counter the what's that saying, like anomaly does, like, it doesn't make the exception, like the exception to the rule doesn't mean it's not, you know what I'm saying? So in most cases, and of course, as I explained in that video as well, the effort has to be in the right direction. So you could be, usually in those cases, those anomalies, what you might say to me to try and debunk what I'm saying, you might say, oh, like this person worked really hard. They worked 80-hour weeks, but they're not like rich. They're not successful, but what they're probably like been working 80 hours like as a cleaner or like as a clerk or something. So like, see, like, you have to be doing the right effort in the right direction as well. Because if the goal, like, let's say you're here and then the goal is here, if you do a lot of effort and you're going the right direction, then yeah, you're gonna like get there. But you could do a lot of effort, but if you're going in the wrong direction, then you're not gonna get the fucking reward no matter how hard you try. You see what I'm saying? So most of them people that are working really hard that aren't really getting anywhere. Of course, sometimes everyone has different, like, certain conditions. Some people are born privileged, but see, like, how can I put it? If you do the effort in the right direction, you will get the equivalent reward, right? In general, that's the case. And yes, there are going to be some cases where someone puts in less effort and he got that high reward. So, like, let's say there was an anomaly and, like, he put in... Let's say there was an anomaly and he put in that much effort, but then he got that reward. And because he was born in, like, a lucky family, he had all the right infrastructure, all the right support, so on and so forth. And then, like, that happened. And then you say, oh, that invalidates what you're saying. But I'm saying, no. See, that's an individual case. And for every case where someone did that, there's going to be someone else who put in that much effort and only got that reward. But you see how, like, that anomaly equalizes out that anomaly. And actually, the general rule is this. Do you get what I'm saying? So yes, actually, the more effort you expend in the right direction will give you a larger equivalent reward and return. And so that's gratification, but then that's an even higher gratification when you expend more effort. The challenge that you overcame was harder, and you got a better reward for it. And then if the challenge is even harder, you expended more effort, then the reward's going to be even better. Do you get it? So like that, there has to be obstacles, there has to be challenges, there has to be possible suffering, possible loss to have also the possibility of experiencing the highest gratification and the highest rewards and the highest peaks by overcoming the hardest obstacles. And in a sense, that's really what like true self-realization is like. Like you could almost imagine everyone else, like in the Matrix, is still stuck in this little box. And they think that this thing, which might be like a sex with a 10 out of 10 model and a mansion, they think that that's the peak. But actually, that's still like generally like low effort and low rewards. See, but they think that's the peak. And that's where all these rich people, they get depressed because they think that's the top. They're laughing at all these other guys like below them, like the poor people. But then they think that they're at the peak, but even there, it's not enough. See, but they don't even know that, then you could like kind of go into the spiritual level and then like, which is even harder, like it's harder to jailbreak your own mind and realize that you don't exist, you're not the body, you're not the mind, like to really understand that on a like cellular level, not just like on the surface, like mental, like conceptual understanding level, to really understand that's way more effort. And then the reward will be even higher.
And then there'll be spiritual people who think that's the peak, but then there's even self-realization, we're even harder. But then the reward is even greater. Do you understand? And it's actually just like the peaks are insane. It's basically infinite scalability. And yeah, so for the possibility of like high gratification, because then people might say, but why didn't God just create it so that we're just experiencing those infinite peaks all the time, or like the gratification all the time without the thing? But you don't understand, like literally what that gratification is encapsulates the pain that you paid for it. It's not like those two things are separate. Like it's not like, you did the pain and then you got that thing and they're completely separate. Like you could have experienced that gratification without the pain. No, that's impossible. Literally what that gratification was, what made it so good was the pain that like pushed it up. Do you understand? And as I explained many times in our past videos, why pain is inevitable and all of that, go watch those past videos. But like once you've already understood that, then you'll start to understand, like for there to be these amazing peaks, like imagine how good it felt for that like Olympic winner who like a gold medalist who spent their whole life from the age they were 3 till like 27. They spent 24 years every day practicing, every week, every month, every year, just for that one gold medal, and then they won it for their country. They broke the world record. Imagine how good they're feeling. Do you think they would have been able to feel that good without all of that strife? No, impossible. So yeah, actually, God in a sense wants us, it's for the gratification. It's not for the suffering. The suffering is just an expense of the good things that we can experience. But you can't have the good without the bad. I know it's corny, yeah, you can't have the good without the bad. It seems like a scapegoat, but really it's just the truth though. It's just the truth though, so what can we say? So yeah, pain is needed, like, because life is the highest stakes game. And that's what makes a life so, like, captivating. So, like, that's what makes life life. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so much things on the line. Like, there's like physical things in like your possession, like your house is on the line, like your phone, your laptop, everything you own, that's on the line. All your relationships, you love that person, like that's on the line. You could lose that relationship. You love that person, you could lose that. That's on the line. Even, and obviously the main core one is that your own life is on the line. And obviously, as I've explained in the as like really you can't die. You was never born. You're not really even alive. You're neither alive nor are you dead. But in the relative plane, as an incarnation, just speaking from the human reference point, you are alive and your life is on the line. And that's what makes you alive. So if there's no possibility of pain, pleasure doesn't mean anything. If there's no possibility of loss, winning doesn't mean anything. If there's no like possibility of being able to die, like mortality is what gives life meaning. And that's even why really after certain levels of awakening, like you kind of become a nihilist to some degree. Well, then obviously even nihilism isn't absolutely true because, see, the problem with nihilism is that people start thinking, everything's meaningless, therefore, see, you can say everything's meaningless, full stop. All right, cool. But then if you say everything's meaningless, which means, like, I shouldn't go to work, or which means that, like, I shouldn't strive for my goals anymore because my goals don't mean anything. See, no, you've just actually went a step too far because then you're not even really a true nihilist because you're saying meaninglessness means this or meaninglessness means that. No. Like, if you're really saying that it's meaningless, then yes, it is meaningless, but even the fact that it's meaningless is meaningless. So it doesn't even change anything. You can create your own meaning. Yes, there's no inherent meaning. You can create your own meaning. And you don't have to do that either. You know what I'm saying? So, but don't use nihilism as like a reason to kind of like just suffer life. Like as if like life has to have a meaning. No, like that would actually be shit if life had a meaning. Like if life meant that, if like the goal of life was to get $1 million, then what would you do after that? Like, Like, do you get what I'm saying? There's no, like, it can't have a meaning or goal. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Do you know what I'm saying? And there was actually one video I was gonna make, but actually, I guess I can include it here whilst I'm speaking about meaning. Is that so I had a note here. That in a sense, meaning is always secondary. So there's the primary, like, appearance, which could be a life or like some condition or some position you find yourself in, some kind of like I don't know, something, right? Well, like, let's say you see like an appearance which appears to be a human, and then see that appearance is there. The appearance is there. The appearance is appearing as what it's appearing as. It doesn't mean anything at all. It isn't anything. It has no substance. Like that screen, like you see that human that you think is a human, that appearance, like here, you think this is a human. That's an appearance that appears to be a human. It has no substance. Like, this is not made out of anything. It's not what it appears to be. It appears as a human, but it's not a human. It's just appearing as a human. All of that's true. It's meaningless. That's true. But then the mind, remember, like, as I explained, the nature of thoughts and so on, the mind is the soundtrack, the secondary narrator. So there's always the thing that you're looking at, which you're like measuring or analyzing. Then there's the mind that comes and labels it and puts it in a box and says, oh, that's a human. Or, oh, that's good. Or, oh, that's bad. Or, oh, that exists. Or that doesn't exist. Which means this. Which means that. See, so meaning is always secondary. It's always like your deductions of the primary experience. So meaning is always created secondary. So yes, really, there's no inherent meaning to anything. And that's really why you could say reality is an illusion or a hallucination, because it's an appearance without substance. Nothing behind it, nothing causing it, not even a purpose behind it. It's literally just appearing to appear, appearing for appearance's sake. And yeah, so meaning's always secondary. So that kind of shows you that, yes, of course, it's meaning is meaningless. It's made up. Every meaning is made up in the mind. Every meaning is made up in the mind. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so you have to really understand that meaninglessness is meaningless. So even though, yes, everything is meaningless, that doesn't mean anything. You can't say, oh, everything's meaningless, so I should kill myself. No. If you're saying, oh, everything's meaningless, so my life is meaningless, which means I should die. See, you're saying it's meaningless, my life is meaningless, which means. No, see, if you're saying which means I should die, then you're saying that life is not, that it's not meaningless. You can't say, oh, it's meaningless, therefore that means this. No, because then that already negates the meaninglessness which you based it off. See what I'm saying? It's the same, like, as I said many times with the is, how truth is absolute. Is, isn't, is. Because if isn't, then it is. It negates itself. See, that's what you have to understand by the negative pole, is that it always negates itself. And that's why there's only everything. That's why people think, oh, why did everything come out of nothing? Because nothing is nothing, but it really is nothing. So therefore, there must be everything instead of it. Because like nothing wouldn't be nothing if there weren't things. Do you understand? So yeah, and because you really are the self and the absolute, and because you really are God, like your essence is actually absolute victory. Really, you can't lose. Like you've already won. Really, you've already won. And because you have already won. Like the opposition or the demons or the devil, whatever, which you really created. That's literally what you're imagining into existence. But all that they can really do is make it appear to you as if you've lost. They can make it appear like you're losing. That's basically the game. It's like game, like God basically, it knew everything, it had everything, it won everything, it had already won, so it was already kind of sitting at the like on the throne. It already had won, but it had won everything, it knew everything, and it is almost like, obviously, as I says, not a person, it's not really thinking, so there's an anthropomorphization of it, but it's almost as if it wanted to essentially experience the complete opposite of itself, which is basically what the devil is like. It's just itself schismed, and that's the fall. Where, because it knew everything, it wanted to basically incarnate into a limited form that didn't know everything, so it could experience a surprise, experience something that it's never experienced before, learn something that it didn't already know. You know what I'm saying? So that's like, and as I say, it kind of gave, in a sense, in the anthropomorphization, it kind of gave the devil or its imaginary opposite, which it created, and it told like its opposite to trap it. Like it allowed itself to be trapped because it wanted to be trapped, but it basically gave this the power, like the ultimate power to trap through illusions. And it basically allowed it to trap it so it could incarnate and experience everything that it isn't, and then to like arise back. Because as I explained, it already was itself in the beginning, but it has to, in a sense, kind of experience what it isn't to compare against and then return back to itself. And only then can it be itself and now know itself. Because you can only know through contrast. And because it had already won, it already knew everything. It was basically, its essence is absolute victory. So it wanted to even experience what it's like to lose. It wanted to experience what it's like to lose a loved one. God can't lose anything. God can't even gain anything. Because it's already everything. Do you understand? So it's not even just that it only came to experience the negative sides, of course, that as well. But then, see, you can experience loss, but then we as humans, we can experience the pleasure of gaining something. Like God can't even gain anything. So in a sense, that's something that we can, so that's kind of why God has incarnated into, to experience everything, every little angle of itself. Is in a sense, consciousness like a mirror. It basically incarnated as us to look back at the mirror, which is the world. It's literally just looking at itself, but it had to kind of spawn in and like look back, because you can only see something. Like if you're in the toilet, you just had a shit, you can't smell it. But if you walk out and then you come back in, then you'll smell the shit. See what I'm saying? Because when you're too close to it, you can't see it. You can only really perceive things from a distance, from outside. So God has to, in a sense, even though it can't go outside of itself, it imagined an outside, or it imagined the hell, which is outside. And really, hell is anywhere that's not heaven. Hell, it doesn't even need to be all the way out. Like hell is basically anywhere that's not in the 0 point, not in the absolute. So literally everything in this dream, Maya, is basically, in a sense, hell. And so it imagined an imaginary hell which doesn't really exist, but appears to exist. And that's where it can experience the appearance of loss, gain, pleasure, pain. You know what I'm saying? And then see, you will suffer more when you take this pain and so on to be like absolute. People start taking like, as if pain is the only real thing, as if it's absolute, but it's not absolute. Pain is not absolute. It's relative. It's there sometimes and then it's not there sometimes. Like, if you think pain is absolute, you are like, you're off the rockers. Are you trying to tell me you've never enjoyed a single moment of your life? Like if you're saying like you would have killed yourself long ago, like at the age of 5, you would have, if every single moment was excruciating pain. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so really you've already won, but so like for yourself to enjoy the game of life or the appearance or the dream, there has to be the appearance that you could lose. There has to be the appearance that you could feel pain. And really, if you, because as I've explained with the X and Y and how the quantum field of consciousness is infinite, it has no edge and it has no center. So any point you can take can be taken to be the center, and then like you can say you're here. Like, and that's why it feels like you're in the middle of the universe. That's why it feels like I'm in the middle of the universe. That's why even here I'm in the center. And then even if I walk 10 meters there, I'll still be in the center. And even if I walk 1,000 meters away, even if I go in a like space shuttle, when I go to Mars, I'll still feel like I'm in the center. Because every point is the center. Because no point is the center. No, there's no true center. So any point, and because there's no edge. See, if there was like just a bubble, then you can say, all right, that's the center, but then if that's not the center. But because there's no edge, anywhere is just the center. So that's why even if you're moving, like you could be moving at the speed of light, but really there's no progression. There's always only the illusion of progression. And yeah, so there, it has to basically, it has to at least appear like it's possible for you to the whole reason why I went on that, because with the X and Y, so you see how you're always in the 0 point, and no matter how high you go, like into like some heaven realm, there'll be somewhere higher, and no matter how far right you go, there'll be somewhere more right. No matter how far left you go, there'll be somewhere more left. No matter how low into hell you go, there's always going to be another, like a lower hell that you could go into. So it could always be better. It could always be worse. So even if you lose, or even if you're in pain, there's always more pain that you could experience. There's always more you could lose. And I don't really think that's a like good rationalization. Like some people use that. I've used that in the past as well. But like when people use that, like they could be in a shit situations, like so bad they're a wage slave, this and that. Then they're always just rationalize to themselves, use it as a solace basically to make themselves feel better. Where there's but this person's like in poverty. At least I've got a house, or at least I'm not like I know dying. With something and they basically always just set the bar lower and lower to make themselves feel better. Because remember, it's always by comparison. So they only feel good because someone's below them. And I think that's kind of shit as well. However, it is also good to know. I'm not saying, that's a good rationalization. I wouldn't even use that as a rationalization. However, it always seems to you, like in this moment, it always seems to you like there's like a worst case scenario that could happen. And it's possible that it could happen. And if it happens, that'll be the worst thing. I'm not saying that imagined possibility that you think could be the worst scenario. I'm not saying that can't happen. Usually, realize that every single time something bad could have happened, and then usually you'll have an imagine of how it's going to spiral out worse and it's going to be the end of your life. How many times you thought it's the end of your life? And then you're still here feeling fine now. But see, that's what I'm basically saying is that there could be something bad that's happened, but then you project that it's going to be this, the worst case scenario. Then realize how 99% of the time that scenario never happens. And even realize there's probably been time where the worst case, what you thought the worst case scenario could happen, happens. But actually when you realize it wasn't the worst case scenario and it could have been worse. Even like you could ask someone who's been like stabbed 20 times and they survived. Like, of course, they're going to be feeling pure pain. They're going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, they might even at first say, that's the worst that could have happened. But then after, if you give them a few months and reflect, then they'll realize, it could have even been worse. I could have died. Or I could have been, burnt in lava. Or I could have been stabbed 20 times or 30 times. And at the same time, my friend got stabbed. And at the same time, someone burgled into my house. So basically, what I just want you to see is that there's always something high. There's always something worse. And actually, what you think is the worst thing that could happen will never be the worst thing that happened. Most likely, it's not going to happen. And even if it does, it could be worse. And it won't be as bad as you think. And furthermore, even if it is as bad as you think and so on and so forth, you have to realize that, see, this moment that you're in is actually the only thing that exists. See, so really, usually 99.999% of the time, there's only the perception of what could go wrong, which has never actually gone wrong at that point when you're thinking about it. So usually everyone's always in fear of this and that, of things that haven't even happened yet. You know what I'm saying? So you have to realize that really, so essentially what I'm saying is that it's impossible to really go to a real hell and always be in hell and always be at the very bottom, the worst scenario, and staying there forever. That doesn't exist. And in fact, the way your mind works is always equilibrium as well. So if you're even in a really bad situation, you'll start feeling used to it. And like after a while, you'll start to feeling as like your baseline will be the same. Like if you've been down here for like 5 years, your baseline will be the same as if you're up here, and like let's say you're up at the peak and you've been here for 5 years, you acclimatize to that, and your baseline here will feel actually exactly the same as the baseline at the bottom. And at the bottom, you'll need less to feel happy because you have less. See what I'm saying? And it's always in by comparison. So if you only have $10 and then you get $10, you're happy. But if you have $1 billion, you could even get $1 million, and that's not going to make a difference. You see? It's always by contrast. And yeah, last but not least, but pain, in a sense, it makes the game and it makes the dream more believable as well. If everything was all good, you would know it's a dream, and you would just wait, like, you wouldn't even pay attention. You just go back to sleep. You say, oh, everything's good. Oh, I don't need to like take care of anything. Oh, I guess I'll just go back to sleep. Like you'll get bored of it. You'll just go back to sleep. You'll just die basically. But the pain makes it realistic. Like you think, oh, there's something I could lose. There's pain. There's something really that could go wrong. So I have to be on point. I have to be alert, so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. But to conclude, bliss and the bittersweet feeling, that melancholy, is the contradiction of pain and pleasure, of right and wrong, of victory and losing. All of the play of these contradictions and opposites, that's really what God loves. And yeah, that bittersweet feeling, that melancholy, that bliss, the richness of that pain and pleasure merging, where it feels so good that it hurts. I wouldn't really say that there's something that feels so bad that it feels good. No. See, if this is so good, because remember, as I said, there's the more true and duality is that. So it's that, like, that's basically, yeah. So I think I'm gonna leave it there. I might make one more video after this, but I'm gonna leave that one there.